Welcome to H1B and we would like to bring this H1B 2018 fiscal year session with Attorney Emandi from Emandi Law Firm. She has over 20 years of experience as an immigration attorney. They have offices in New York and New Jersey, and I think a bunch of other virtual locations. She has a lot of experience handling H1B visas over 20 years. So we will try to we'll try to squeeze in time as much as possible. It'll at least take an hour. When we finish a topic, we will get into. I'll open up Q&A. When you called in, it probably gave you an option to raise a question, but I will try to see if we can accommodate. Right now, I see a lot of participants. We'll try to keep your questions, very simple. Only one question to the attorney, so we don't make it, chaotic and then drag it forever. Let's try to keep it, pretty simple. And just to let you know, although we have an attorney on the call, we will not provide any legal information. This is just, for informational use only at your own risk. If you need services of an attorney, you can connect with them later on. At the end of the call, I will provide contact information to the attorney, or she can provide you with the contact information. But she's available. Her website is Emandi, EMANDI law.com. So before we, I know some of you, most of you here I see logged in from the United States. So you probably have, by the way, I forgot to introduce myself. I was on a flight from Texas. I just got into Jersey 5 minutes ago, and I'm on this call. So forgot to introduce myself. I run this free website, H1Bsupport.com forum to help our community. My name is Dan Nandan. I'm also a CEO of an IT consulting company called Hire IT People. We are based out of DC, New Jersey, Texas, Maryland, India, Bangladesh. Right now we're setting up an office in Mexico as well. We work with a lot of direct clients, and this call is purely informational, so this is nothing to do with, we're not offering any sponsorship, so just keep that in mind. So no questions about sponsorship to me or to the attorney. We will not sponsor any visas, and we will not answer anything related to payments or, how much it costs, if you have to make a payment to a company. So anything to do with money or, payments, we will not answer those questions. So just keep in mind. So before we get there, before we begin this, now I know we have a lot of questions about what happens after the Mr. Trump as one as the president who's going to assume offices sometime in the month of January next year, and is everything is going to be the same. So we'll try to make it more interactive than a boring lecture from any one of us. I have some topics for the attorney. So, Attorney Emandi, can you throw some light on what is going to happen? You have any information from your known sources? Would there be any change with the H1B program coming fiscal year 2018?
Yeah. Dan, can you hear me fine?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
I hope everyone can, yes.
Okay. First off, thank you for the opportunity to speak to yourself and the esteemed interested individuals. I'm happy to be here and happy to shed some light on perhaps their queries and questions about immigration. And in terms of, you were asking about the potential impact of Donald Trump on immigration. Is that what you wanted me to somewhat answer?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, it's clear that Donald Trump, the President-elect Donald Trump, began his candidacy on the premise that he was against illegal immigration. So that is one of his main policies that he built his platform on. And it seems that that is something that he certainly will follow through with his candidacy once he becomes the president in January 2017. Hence, the focus will be first to carry through with any policies towards limiting illegal immigration. For instance, the Deferred Action Program, for which has been implemented to help illegal aliens to allow them to work in the United States. That has been in place for students of a certain age who went through the school system and specifically was extended to their parents. And that is what would potentially be basically eliminated to some extent. We anticipate that he will reverse Obama's plan in regards to that. In terms of legal immigration, that's our bigger concern as to how it will impact legal immigration. And it's unlikely that he can touch, immigration is a complex, it has many complex policies surrounding it as to when these particular laws, specifically about H1B the H1B law and other visa law has been in place, such as the worker visas, L1s, H1s, there's O1s. Many specific visas have been out there for a long time, and there's such a history and a basic tenet of the United States, which is to encourage and embrace immigrants, and that policy cannot change overnight by one individual. It's been a policy that has been in place for many years, scores and scores of years, such that I don't think that he would be particularly against, or I don't think he can have any real impact on immigration that is pertaining to the H1B law or any other work visas. He can potentially just impose additional fees, which is what they typically like to do, and what Congress has done over time, which is increase certain fees. It's unlikely that they can change the number of visas. It's definitely possible that they could change the number of visas, but to limit it further, for instance, for the H1B lottery, it's yet to be seen. But I think that there won't be any radical changes in terms of the H1B law, and I think that's what our greater concern is for perhaps the individuals on this call. And so in a nutshell, it remains to be seen, but nothing radical can happen. This has been the policy of America for a long time, which is to embrace legal immigration. So that's what I believe.
All right, thank you. Now, for the participants, if you'd like to access the menu to get into the Q&A to ask a question and raise your hand, you can press *4. By pressing *4, it will play a list of touch-tone commands. You could ask a question, *4 on your phone, so that way you can place yourself in the Q&A queue. Okay. Now, as we have seen, Attorney Emandi, last year we've had almost 300,000 plus applications that were sent out. So what do you anticipate for the upcoming fiscal year 2018? Just for the participants to let you know, the fiscal year starts in the month of October. So that's why for the 2017, this is called 2018. So don't get confused why I'm saying to 2018. So the United States fiscal year starts October 1st. So they count it as, 2018 H1B cap or quota. It has a bunch of synonyms. Now, what do you anticipate in terms of, a lottery again, with in respect of, the given changes, this whole, H4s have gotten EADs, but I don't think anything has changed here.
And what was the last part of the question? I heard the first part, which was about the lottery, and the last part.
No, what do you anticipate for the upcoming year? Do you think we will still run into the lottery? Will there be more than
right.
60,000? 65,000 applications, which has been a practice last, number of years. So do you still anticipate that there will be a lottery next year?
Right. So for the last several years, there has been there has always been at least double to triple the number of applicants for the 65,000 H1B visas, and 65,000 for the bachelor's degree lottery, the bachelor's degree quota, and there's another 20,000 for the master's degree quota. And historically, for every year, there has always been a lottery. And certainly the following year that we see coming for the fiscal year of 2018, we definitely expect a lottery system of at least, it seems to be 3 times plus the number of applicants for the respective spots.
Okay. Just to engage the participants, I have someone, they raised their hand. Should I take a question?
Yes,
is
of
that
course.
Okay? All right.
Yes, this is
so
fine.
I don't have the name here, but anonymous is, what's showing up. I'm going to unmute your line. Yes, you are unmuted. Can you speak up, please? You're on the air. Someone had a question.
Hi, am I audible? Yeah,
Yes.
am I audible?
Yes,
Okay.
you are.
So this is regarding the H1B lottery selection.
I'm sorry. What's your name and location, sir?
This is Raj Sarodaya from Pune, Maharashtra, India.
Okay. Yeah, please go ahead.
So this is regarding the lottery selection process. So does the postgraduate degree, if the candidate holds a postgraduate degree and experience and previous foreign travel, then what are the odds? Like, is there any preference given to such kind of applications, petitions, or is it just processed in the normal way?
Yeah, we're just getting there. We'll definitely explain who actually is eligible for. We will definitely ask that question to attorney and find out who's actually eligible for. If you have, we will definitely get there. So I'll just we have that question. So definitely we'll talk about that topic as well. Thank you. All right. So now coming back to Attorney Emandi, now the bunch of items here before I speak about where they can find sponsors. It looks like they have typical questions in terms of. We will definitely come to that should have been the first topic, and where you can find sponsors. Right now, this is the month of November. To quickly, put in my experience, where we find sponsors, there are 2 types of employers. One is a consulting employer, who are typically staffing agencies who bring candidates on an H1B visa from overseas, as well as locally people who are here in this country. Change their status, file an H1B visas for those type of candidates. Now, who is a consulting employer? They just hold your visa. They run your payroll. They offer you benefits, but they place you with their clients or a third-party client. And in my opinion, if you have an opportunity to find a direct employer, that's an easier process, especially if you're coming from overseas. So where you find direct employers, it's again a job application process. You find a lot of these, contractual jobs. If you go to websites like Indeed.com, Dice, Monster, TechFetch, these are websites where there are a lot of H1B jobs that are posted, which clearly says contract. So although, and you have to look for, if it says full-time, don't get confused. Once it says full-time, you have to look for are they only looking for U.S. citizens or green card holders? So if it specifically says, I would sit down on a daily basis and apply to 100 jobs, since you have time, it is very likely if you have good background and expert, it is very likely that you can find an employer, a direct employer before 31st of March, someone who can actually go through the traditional interview process and then offer you a job opportunity and eventually file an H-1B visa. We'll get back to that whole process once again if time permitting. But then if you have any question that is not covered here, please post it on h1bsupport.com. We will be glad to answer those questions, including anything to do with finding a sponsor through the entire immigration process from filing an H-1B visa through the stamping process if you are overseas. Now, can we, Ms. Emandi, can you explain to our audience what is the actual process steps involved from scratch after they've found a sponsor? How this whole thing works in terms of someone who's overseas versus someone who's already in the United States, like students or dependents. Can you throw some light on those topics? Thank you.
Sure. In terms of, let's speak about the individuals who are abroad and they find an employer to sponsor them. And once they accept a job offer and they sign the respective employment agreement and perhaps questionnaires as required by the employer, they will share their personal documents with the employer. That would consist of their passport copy, their degree certificates and transcripts. Typically, the bachelor's degree is a minimum requirement to demonstrate that the position meets the requirements of a specialty occupation. Specifically, there's a bachelor's degree in a specific field of study. For instance, for the information technology field, typically a computer science degree or an engineering degree or a management information science degree would qualify for that particular title in that particular position in the information technology field. So the individual must ensure they provide all their transcript copies, their degree copies, if it's a bachelor's or master's, all those copies. Additionally, they would want to provide, as we mentioned, the passport and any work experience letters. Those are important because the employer may want to also do some due diligence and verification, and so such documents are shared. Once the employer receives the documentation, the employer either directly or through an attorney shall file and compile the documents to prepare the H-1B petition, which will be submitted no later than as early as April 1 of that particular year, April 1st. And hopefully once the petition is filed with the respective fees, if the H-1B is selected in the lottery, perhaps typically within the third week of April, the USCIS starts issuing receipt notices to the employer and the attorney. And if the person is selected, it's sometimes, if the case is filed in premium processing, that is, if the case is adjudicated in a 2-week period, the case can be approved as quickly as that. Otherwise, it can take up to 6 to 7 months sometimes, if not around that period of time. And once the H-1B approval is received, it is mailed directly to the attorney and or the employer. A copy is mailed to the employer, and the employer will then coordinate sending the H-1B approval to the beneficiary abroad. And once the beneficiary receives a copy of the approval via email and or a physical copy, the employee can now schedule the visa appointment with the U.S. consulate abroad. And typically that can be scheduled, it ranges anywhere from a few weeks to a month or so. And then the person can appear for visa stamping. In terms of the process in the United States, it's the same process, with the exception of the documentation being different. In the United States, if the person is physically present here, they would have, in addition to the basic documents such as the passport, degree certificates, transcripts, and experience letters, the individual here would also share additional immigration documents called the I-94, which documents the fact that they are physically in the country. And in addition to that, if the person's on a different status, they would have a different approval copy reflecting their particular status, and they would share that. So essentially, it's just about the type of documentation that's submitted that might be a little different regarding status, and that's really the main difference with the United States versus with someone being physically present in the United States versus abroad in the home country, in a foreign country. So that's basically it. Dan, if you have any other questions, let me know.
Sure. Now, typically, we all know, someone just asked a question that was a pretty interesting question on who qualifies for. Now, I'd like to throw some light on this. There are 65,000 visas available for people who are, for the total H1B count is 65,000 plus 20,000 set aside for master's graduates from U.S. universities, which are universities who are public and not-for-profit. Now, Raj, you asked a question. If you do not hold a master's degree or, from the U.S., you don't have an exception. You still have to go with the 65,000. Out of the 65,000, 6,800 visas are set aside for Singapore and Chile. So technically, if you're overseas and if you don't have a master's degree from a U.S. university, there are only 58,000 visas available. So now, can you explain a little more, Ms. Emandi, about what is that advantage who have a master's degree from a U.S. university? And there has been a chaos in terms of who actually qualifies. Somebody's from a private university. Can we? Someone just asked a question about he has a postgraduate degree from. I'm assuming he's calling from Pune, India. I'm assuming he has the degree locally, but I will still open him up again once you give us some information on these lines.
Specifically, well, you asked a few questions. You mentioned a few points, Dan, in terms of 1,000 visas available, and this is specifically for individuals who possess a U.S. master's. And if we refer back to that particular question the individual raised about from India, if the person has a bachelor's degree, it will definitely. Can you?
I think you were cut off. There's some problem with the lag. Can you repeat that once again, please?
In terms of the master's quota, yes, it's clear. It's 20,000 visas that are available for individuals who possess U.S. masters with specific requirements. Any individual who possesses a foreign degree, that is a bachelor's or even a master's degree or any postgraduate degree, that would still fall under the regular quota, the bachelor's quota. So in terms of what additional questions do you have?
No, I think, it's just that, there's a lot of confusion between, I'm assuming candidates overseas with foreign degrees still assume if they have, like, say, an MCA or a master's degree, they're probably under the impression that if somebody has a PhD, that they have an exception. So is that true?
So there are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there is no additional, shall I say, advantage that an individual who possesses a higher than a bachelor's degree, that possesses greater than a bachelor's degree has over someone who just has a bachelor's degree. Keeping in mind that a foreign degree holder must have at least a 4-year bachelor's degree or a combination between their bachelor's and master's of at least 4 years of education in order to qualify for the H1B quota, which is the regular quota, which has 65,000 visas available. But technically it becomes 58,200 visas because the 6,800 is specifically one portion of that 65,000 visas is limited to the Singapore and Chilean nationals. So really there are only 58,200 visas available for the bachelor's quota. Hence, in order to be eligible for the bachelor's quota, a foreign degree holder must possess a total of 4 years of education in the particular field. And that can be counted by clubbing together the bachelor's, if it's a 3-year bachelor's degree, and if it's a 1-year postgraduate diploma that qualifies based on the institution that would meet the requirement. If it's a 3-year bachelor's degree and a 2-year master's degree, that would also meet the requirements, which would be equivalent to a 4-year bachelor's degree, U.S. bachelor's degree. Such individuals would have to, any foreign degree has to be evaluated by an accredited U.S. evaluation company, and the evaluation must be obtained to ensure that this person's education is equivalent to your U.S. degree. So, but there is no additional incentive that even if you have a PhD, whatnot, it doesn't make a difference when it comes down to being eligible for the bachelor's quota.
Okay. Now, if any one of you have questions, I see people still calling in. Just press *4 to play those touchtone commands, so you can ask a question, raise your hand, and we will take those calls. Now, just to let you know, I found a website. I do not endorse any websites, but then there's a nice website called H1B.io. It's not .com. It's .io. It's actually intelligently trying to match the Labor Department H1B data with companies who are actually posting jobs. So they have right now 157,000 jobs that they try to match with H1B sponsors. It's a simple website, H1B.io. When you have some time, maybe you can look up actual sponsors who are who have been sponsoring H1B visas, for a number of years. So if you see a job from those companies, it's worth a shot, and as many applications that you can put in, that will probably help you to find a sponsor. But I would definitely recommend before you try to attempt to find a sponsor, do your homework. You got to be very careful, especially if you're overseas. You have a family. You're trying to make this attempt to move to the U.S. since there is a lottery involved. So you got to be extremely careful. Now, we'll swing right back into Ms. Emandi. You want to take a break, maybe for 5 minutes, or you want to continue the session?
I'm fine to continue speaking. Thank you.
All right. Now, when these are, a collection of questions from our previous webinars. People have had. Okay, I will. I wanted to, complete the question with Raj from Pune. Raj, I'm going to open you up. I just want to know if that is clear. Raj, you're unmuted. Raj, can you speak up? Hello? Raj?
Hi, Dan.
Raj? Yes, hi.
Yeah.
So that was your question, right?
Right, yeah.
Okay, so basically, as you explained, unless you had, there's a 20,000 quota which is, set aside for U.S. master graduates, and there are exceptions there as well. Now, the only thing, while you're applying for these jobs, as an employer myself, based on my personal experience, I would also suggest that you also look for companies who are not-for-profits. There are a lot of, I'm sure most of you guys are IT. I don't know how many of you are non-IT, but then there are a lot of, not-for-profit organizations which do not have any annual H1B quota. Or maybe they do, but then, it's easier to, find, those type of sponsors. You should also look for those type of jobs if you're exceptionally talented. So any other question, Raj?
No, Dan. As of now, I'm fine.
All right. Thank you. All right. Now, once we complete the sessions with the attorney, we'll try to jump into a bunch of do's and don'ts, and then, what happens when how this all. Now, what is this is a question to Attorney Emandi. Now, what is the process, or, is it safe to work with smaller employers, or are they looking for large employers? What is this, whole mess? I know there are there are MNCs
right.
who are filing H1Bs, tens of thousands of H1Bs, and then there are smaller staffing consulting firms filing H1Bs. Do you think that's a safe model if they, I don't want to call them body shops, but then what is that they must have to qualify if someone is approaching a consulting company to become their employer, sponsor an H1B visa, then what is that they should look for to ensure that the H1B visa will be, after if it is picked in the lottery, to guarantee an approval? What is that, based on your experience, what do you suggest?
So in terms of H1B employers, a small company, even if it has 2 to 3 employees, has the potential to obtain an H1B approval and also bring that individual, if it is someone abroad, into the United States with an approved visa. While the basis for an H1B, the requirement for an H1B employer hinges on the employer demonstrating that the employer has a valid, bona fide employment based on an employment contract for service, based on a contract for service. The employer would have to demonstrate through specific documentation to the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services that the employer has a legitimate work contract for services with a client. And such documentation consists of perhaps the master agreement, and typically a smaller company or certain companies typically may not have a direct client relationship where they would specifically have a contract with a client directly. Oftentimes, the relationship follows more than one parties. That is, it could be another party in between. It could be 2 more parties or 3 more parties in between. But if the employer is able to demonstrate this chain of contracts through that master agreement and a respective work order between the middle party and ultimately to the end client, then the employer has a solid chance of success for the H1B individual to be approved. So it's important that the employer demonstrate that. Now, it could be a smaller employer that has 2 to 3 employees, or this employer could have over 100 or 200 employees. It's the same basic premise and demonstration of evidence that the employer must substantiate with the government. So, but at the same time, there is, with a smaller company, as long as this is verified through the consulate, and the bottom line is, when you're dealing with a smaller company, the consulate could do additional verification, and they could potentially issue, additional notices, potentially in a 221G, which means that they require additional documentation or verification, and they have a right to do so. So we kind of see scenarios whereby younger companies here and there do have this additional verification happening, but if the client, ultimately the consulate could even contact the client directly to verify this contract, and if they do, and if it's cleared, the H1B can be granted. So I think that ultimately, an employee or a potential employee has to just get a good feeling about this employer, and that they have a track record for solidly having H1Bs approved and having employees work for them. And so there is that due diligence that each individual must conduct on their own, and I think it's perhaps by word of mouth or something to that effect, and company reputation in the industry to see if they are with the right employer.
Okay. So now, what are the dates that they have to keep in mind? So when they have an employment, they find a sponsor, and what are the timelines in terms of is it like in the month of March, or how this whole process occurs? So what is the employer or the attorney, the steps that are involved when an employment agreement is signed between the sponsoring employer and a candidate who is here or overseas?
Right. Well, the steps, I think that one of the there's a timeline, and the timeline could be that anywhere from now until prior to filing, which would really be by the last week of March, or really the cases are all filed on March 31st for April 1st delivery, depending on if it's a weekend. But before that time, and starting as early as possible, it is important for the individual seeking an employment through an H1 employer to engage into a good relationship whereby they feel comfortable enough to obtain that employment agreement as early as possible. So that would begin now. And once they enter into that agreement, they would start sharing the documentation, which we discussed would consist of their personal information, the passport, their education, and experience-related documents. And, into January, you wouldn't want to be in a rush coming into March, because by January you should be in a good position of knowing where you are with an employer, because by Feb the documentation has to be initiated with the employer and the attorney, and as there are hundreds of thousands of cases being put together, and different firms have different requirements and different levels of volume, and certainly an employer will not be just filing 5 cases. Even if it is a small employer, they're going to file as many as they can. So it's important to get documentation to the employer by into the month of January and February, and ensure that all the documentation is cleared and all the information is in the hands of the right parties, so that the employer and attorney is in the right position to just prepare this documentation in the month of February and hence file in the month of March. Okay.
Yeah, just to supplement there, I just want the participants to ensure your employer is using services of a qualified attorney, just someone like Ms. Emandi. If you are talking to employers, if you need her services, you can go to emandilaw.com, and we'll also send you an email with that information. So keep that in mind. It's very important when they file an H1B petition. Although they have contracts, everything is clear. You just want to make sure someone who's sending the application, the attorney on record, is definitely qualified. That will make your life a lot easier even if you're in the U.S. or if you're overseas. Please keep that in mind.
I think that one thing, Dan, I just do want to stress that I see problems occurring. We've seen a lot of, I would say, lives twisted when an employer, the employers really, if there's a track record of a strong employer who's handling H1s on their own, that's fine. But we've seen a lot of mistakes being made by employers as well because the certain documentation is missing. The petitions are filed improperly. They don't make it to the missing filing fee here and there. There's a lot of missteps that can occur with the filing of an H1B if a qualified professional is not engaged. And I mean, I don't want to state anything. I just want to say that I've seen a lot of mistakes being happening when there is no attorney involved. And I just want to tell individuals to try to work with employers who do use attorneys. It's in their best interests because sometimes, not to say anything about employers who don't use attorneys, but honestly, in my experience, we've seen a lot of mistakes occur without attorneys, qualified attorneys. I just urge them to ensure that their employer is using an attorney. That would be in the best interests of the individuals there, unless the employer has a good, solid track record of solid employees making it through the H1 quota.
You just mentioned earlier about the contracts that they should have, especially when it comes to the consulting or staffing firms. A lot of people have asked these questions on our forum, about companies who have these internal projects. Are they safe? If someone is working through a consulting firm, if they've had an internal project that they are showcasing into the immigration and or the consulates at some point, now is this method safe? Would you like to pass some comments on this?
Yeah, sure. We have clients who have internal projects, whether those are viable to have H1Bs approved through employers who use internal projects, that turns on whether these projects are legitimate. If the project is legitimate, if it is being developed, if there is data out there on the website of the company confirming this project, if there is material on the web that confirms, maybe there's media that the employer is demonstrating or has out there in the internet about the fact that the employer is developing this project, if the employer is able to show that the employer has potential interest in the project through clients or customers. There's many vehicles, there's many ways to demonstrate the legitimacy of a project. If it's something, certainly if the project is not legitimate and if it is put together to potentially just have an H1B approved without being legitimate, that is when any employer is going to have trouble. So when you say internal project, I can only support what is legitimate, and if an employer has this project that will be marketed and can demonstrate there's a marketing plan for that project and can demonstrate there's a business plan for that project into a 3-year period, and that the employer has the resources and finances to support that project, that's when it's feasible. And certainly the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services will question such projects or products and will look for documentation by issuing a request for evidence. And hence there's a very detailed list of information that the USCIS will request. And if an employer cannot sustain such an inquiry or scrutiny, certainly the case will not be approved. So it's a pretty detailed project documentation that must be submitted to demonstrate the viability of such a project or product. So I think that employers must carefully weigh whether there is a legitimate project or not, and then only file accordingly. Otherwise, they will not be able to withstand the scrutiny of the USCIS.
Okay. Now, after the petition, the H1B petition has been sent to the immigration. Now, how do the candidate know if his or her H1B has been accepted for processing or rejected in the lottery? What is the mechanism that they have for the employers to notify the candidates?
All right. Well, certainly if the case is selected in the lottery, the USCIS will issue a receipt notice that is sent. One notice goes to the employer and one to the attorney, and that is typically the notification. And this typically occurs, as I mentioned earlier, into the third week of April, and then if it's by premium processing, it will happen around that time, or if it's irregular processing, it could occur a week or two weeks later. But it's the receipt notice that will be a physical notice that is received at the employer or the attorney. And if the case is filed in premium processing, then it could be sent by email to the attorney.
Okay. All right. So before we get into the next topic, there were a few questions. Someone just posted a question. I think he's on the call. The question here is lottery versus transfer. I secured an H1B through a sponsor in 2012, expired August 2016. I don't know how it was for 4 years, but then maybe he had an extension. Moved to India into 2014, leaving the job. Do I go through the lottery or a transfer?
So the H1B was issued in 2012, you said?
Yes, it looks like he worked on an H1B visa until 2014, although it was
right.
Valid until the August of 2016.
Right. Typically, an H1B that has been issued to an individual within the last 6 years will permit the individual to file for H1B at any time, and the individual is not subject to the H1B quota again. So that individual or any individuals who have received an H1B visa, even if they either have not used it or if they've since worked and left and returned Hello?
Hello? Yes, I'm still here.
Hello?
It stated
Hello.
that
Okay. Yes, I'm sorry. That's
all right.
problem.
So, right. So, as I was saying that, clarify
I'm sorry
that again.
About that. The cap exempt, someone who had an H1B.
Yes. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So the individual, they would not be subject to the quota again. So that's the good news that people, sometimes I see this question often asked again and again, but it's clear that the individual is not subject to the H1B quota and can file for H1B at any given time. That means that if they find another employer, that employer does not need to wait for the lottery. They can file for an H1B for that individual, as long as the individual is able to show that employer, here's my prior visa, here's my H1B approval within the last 6 years.
Okay. Now, quickly, it looks like, participants have a problem, trying to raise a question. I'll try to open up lines for everyone. I don't have a choice. There's no problem with the whole conferencing, the touchstone commands. But if you have questions, let's try to, go by one, and you'll get a message that, the Q&A session is over. It does not mean the session is over. You can open up, ask questions if you have any questions about anything to me or to the attorney. Just bear with me. Everybody's on the air. So if anyone has a question, please speak up.
Hi, this last question was for me. I had posted it, and thank you so much for the answer. I am, so just to confirm, am I subject to H1B transfer then?
Hi. So you had the H1B issued in 2012?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. So it's not, if you're physically out of the United States, then we wouldn't call it an H1B transfer. We would just call it an H1B petition that's not subject to the quota.
Okay, sounds good. So I can just tell my sponsor that they can go ahead and file my H1B, and they don't need to actually submit me for the
quota. That's right.
Also, I have a master's from United States already. Does that help in any way?
It's not that it gives you any added advantage. Certainly, when you're finding an employer, they might find that beneficial and above the rest or whatnot if they're comparing education and whatnot. But I think that it doesn't have any additional benefit in terms of an immigration standpoint, with the exception, it's not for you. You're not subject to the quota, so it doesn't have any additional benefit from an immigration standpoint.
All right, just one last thing. So that means that my application is just subject to whether I should be given an H1 or not, whether the sponsor is good or not, right? It's not about lottery anymore.
That's correct. It's just about whether the employer is able to demonstrate they have a valid bona fide employment for your particular position and education. Yeah.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, ma'am. One more question. If I'm on F2, because I'm planning on coming on F2 now as a dependent, can I get transferred into H1B, or would that not work?
Of course, the employer would file a change of status petition for H1B, not subject to the quota for you. So it would be a change of status petition, and you would not be subject. Mm-hmm.
All right. And is an F2 to H1B change of status easy, or is that a very difficult process? We find everything standard. Once we've been practicing this area, it's just standard for us. And any professional, any legal professional in this field, to us, it's just a matter of different documentation. There is, from a standpoint of difficulty or whatnot, there's no additional difficulty in terms of documentation. It's all standard procedure. So we don't see anything. I don't anticipate anything different or difficult or for your type of petition at all. So it's all
very
right.
standard. Mm-hmm. Yes.
All right, ma'am. Just one last. I'm absolutely sure. One last question. Since H1B is valid for 6 years, I mean, you can extend it for 6 years, and mine would be 2 more years now, or 3 more years. Can I just extend it per year also, or do I have to go through green card process then?
You said that you have 3 years remaining on your H1B time?
I do, yes.
Right. What was the other question?
After the 3 years are over, do they still do an extension on the H1B, or is it a green card process?
What happens is it would be in your best interest during this 3-year period to have a green card petition filed for you. And if a green card petition is filed and a priority date is established, which is the date that your labor has been filed, and if it's been pending for over 1 year, you would be able to extend your H1B status in the country for 1-year increments until the I-140 is approved, which is the second stage of the green card. So if you do start your green card process, then you can continue to extend your H1B indefinitely, and so it's in your best interest to go ahead and start that as soon as possible. Otherwise,
okay, so
yeah. And just to clarify, if you finish your 3 years and you haven't started a green card process, then you would have to apply subject to the quota after that period. Or you could leave the country for 1 year, but either way, you'd still be subject to the quota. That's just the bottom line.
All right.
Okay, thank you so much, ma'am. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Sure. Best wishes.
Anyone has any
Hi,
more questions? Or yeah.
Hi, my name is Ganesh. My question essentially is regarding in the year 2014, a smaller employer filed for my H1 visa, and the attorney kind of botched up the LCA because the employer had a virtual office address, and she put that address on the LCA. That sort of opened up a can of worms, and they asked for the USCIS asked for a lot of documentation, and the employer at some point in time couldn't support the RFE and the denial. So we didn't fight it, so the case got denied. The petition got denied. So my question to the attorney is that does the denial of the previous applications have a negative sort of impact on the future applications, or is it independent?
It typically is independent, specifically for when an employer is involved, and if the employer didn't get the case approved and the case was denied due to the employer's inability to demonstrate the bona fide employment, then this has no bearing on instance for your future application with any other employer. Do you intend to apply with that same employer?
No, of course not. But a different
right.
employer.
Right. So you have no impact. There's no impact on your future H1B application with any employer.
Okay.
All right. So that answers your question, Ganesh. So any other questions? Because we would like to close the call in the next 5 minutes. We will probably come up with another session. It's pretty late. In about 2 weeks, we'll do a total Q&A session. Anyone has any more questions?
Yes,
there is another topic. Sure. Who is this?
Yeah, this is Pooja here. So my question is, will the number of RFPs increase now that Trump will be the president? Will there be more scrutiny in the application? And if I haven't done my master's in IT, then how does it affect me getting the approval of H1B?
Okay, I have a question first for you, ma'am. What is your your bachelor's, is it a 4 years bachelor's degree?
Yes, I am a bachelor's and a master's, but my master's is not in IT. Both of them are not in IT, but I'll be working for an IT firm.
What is the education then? What is the field of study?
Mine is biology.
Biology. And your master's is also, you're pursuing it in biology or in a different field?
Biomedical engineering.
Okay. Is it that you are seeking a position in the information technology field?
Yes.
Okay. So it's going to be difficult for you to file to have an H1B petition filed for you specifically in the technology field based on the biology degree. However, if you complete that biomedical engineering master's degree, you would probably be able to file in the technology field, depending on whether your master's degree had sufficient coursework in engineering. So that would be my take on it, so you'd be able to tell what percentage or how many engineering courses you've taken, and if that's a good bulk of what your degree involves. In terms of whether there's an increase in RFEs based on the fact that President-elect Trump will ultimately govern. The fact is that requests for evidence, we've seen such a range of them. I've seen a range of them since I started practicing in 1996, and I've seen them evolve through different requirements over time. Some of the basic requirements, the basic questions always are there. For instance, one of the basic requests for evidence are demonstrate that this position is a specialty occupation. This has existed since I began practicing, prior to when I began practicing till today. It's the same questions that still applies for different positions. Along the way, there are different trends in questions that evolve over time, depending on case law that has been adjudicated with the Administrative Appeals Office and the Immigration's Office. So, in terms of what happens, we see a trend, and there's a lot of changes throughout time. As to whether things change because of Donald Trump, it has yet to be seen. I can't say that additional requests of evidence will out of the blue start appearing. I've seen a strong inquiry from the USCIS over time, and there has been a harsher line of questioning and a higher weight of evidence that the employer has to demonstrate the existence of a solid bona fide employment. But as to whether something stringent will happen, it's yet to be seen. It's possible, but I don't think that something can double or become double than what it is just because Donald Trump is president. So we'll wait and see, but I don't think that something major will happen in that regard. The law cannot be changed overnight. The law cannot radically change either. There has to be, there's other parties involved, and no one can unilaterally change what's been in place for years.
Okay.
Hi, Dan. I don't mean to butt in, but I just have a quick follow-up to what Pooja asked. Can I go ahead?
Sure.
So, Attorney, my background essentially, I got my bachelor's in instrumentation. I got my master's here, from a recognized university in US in biomedical engineering, and I was working in the healthcare IT field when my H1 got denied in the year 2014. But that was essentially due to the employer not being able to give proper documentation. I ran out of my OPT period. Last 2 times I couldn't get my H1 picked in the lottery. So I'm essentially about to finish my second master's in computer information systems. That is due to be completed in the year 2017 by June. So if my employer, a future employer, files for my H1 with in a master's degree quota based on my computer information systems degree, would that still be viable, or would still there be questions raised because I have 2 masters and both of them are in totally different fields?
Could you? I'm sorry. I heard that you are pursuing your master's in information technology currently, right?
Right. So I have 1 master's already in biomedical engineering. I had my OPT period through which I had 3 essentially 2 to 3 times where different employers filed for my H1 twice. It didn't get picked. Once it got denied because of improper documentation. So I'm right now pursuing a second master's in computer information systems.
Can someone mute their phones, please?
Hello.
I'm going to mute them off. Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay.
So I'm doing my second master's in computer information systems, which is due to be completed middle of next year. Can I have an employer file for my H1 coming April in the master's degree quota? Would that be a problem? Would flags be raised, or what do you think about it?
Yes, you can have an employer file for you. I mean, was that just your basic question, whether any employer can file for you, or did you
No,
have
of course, employers can file for me, but essentially would there be questions raised, as to, this person has been here just to maintain the status, he's doing another master's degree, but this one is in the same field as IT.
All. No, not at all. There should be no problem. There should be no query about that. We've seen people with dual masters, and I don't see that anyone can ask. USCIS could not even ask such a question. So you'd be perfectly fine.
Perfect. And would that be, since the first master was in biomedical engineering, this could still go in the master's degree quota? Because by the time of applications, my second master's in computer information systems would not be completed.
Right.
Okay.
Yes, you would be fine in the master's quota since you did complete it here, and it probably meets those requirements of the university. So you'd be fine under the master's quota. Yes.
Okay. Perfect.
All right. So I think we have a few more minutes.
So
if there is any last question, we will take one more question and to end the session tonight.
Hi, Dan. This is Ashwin here. I have a quick question.
Sure.
So the question is, I was on H1B from 2007 to 2010, which I finished 3 years on H1B. After that, I with employer A, and then I went to India. I was there working for 5 years in India, and then through employer B, I got the H1 file through CAP exempt. And then I returned back to the U.S., currently in the U.S. working here. So my question is, one, if I transfer my H1B to a new employer, switch the employer, what would be the remaining period for which I would receive H1? That is, would the clock reset because I was in India for 5 years? That's question number one. Question number two is there a way I can file for a fresh H1B when I'm already in the U.S. working on H1?
Okay, so in terms of the first question, you started your H-1B in 2001, is it?
2007. 2007
I'm
to
sorry,
2010.
2007, that's correct. And it would have been available till 2000. Okay. What happens is, while the law permits you to, the question is whether you are CAP exempt. You're not subject to the quota. The question is whether you're not subject to the quota when you have obtained an H-1B in 2007. And
the question is, the question to be specific is like, I finished 3 years on the H1, and then I was in India working for 5 years, right? And I got the H1 file on CAP exempt quota with another employer with whom I was working.
Okay, so let me clarify. I mean, the bigger issue is whether, typically when an individual has an H1B, has obtained an H1B visa within the last 6 years, the individual is not subject to the quota if they have an employer file for them within the last 6 years. So what happens is your H-1B was filed in the year 2007, right?
Right.
And this is beyond that 6-year period. What's happened is it's possible that you could still try and file to see if the USCIS will accept the application even though it's beyond a 6-year period. And you have, because it was 2007, my argument would be that it is possible because you still have 3 years remaining, and I have been successful in the past when an H-1B has been obtained beyond a 6-year period. So I would tell you that you could try and see. You might have to fight it a little because the government is a little inconsistent.
Sorry, Attorney, to interrupt, but I think the situation is 2007 to 2010. I was working here in the U.S. Then I went to India, changed my employer, worked there for 5 years, and the employer got the cap exempt when they filed. So through the second employer, I came back to the U.S. So I'm already in the cap exempt quota. So
cap exempt means it's a cap exempt employer, right?
I'm sorry, Attorney and Ashwin. We have to close this session now. But then if you can pose this question on the website, H1B support.
Yes, why don't you pose it and I can... Yeah, that's a good idea.
Sure. One last question, please. I was waiting for a long time.
Sure.
Yeah. This is Aditya, and my question to you is since I graduated my engineering in 2010, and since then I'm working as a software engineer. But though every semester I'm applying for F1 visa, that is student visa, and every time I apply I'm getting the admit, but my F1 visa is getting rejected. This is the 7th time. I went previously in last August, and my visa got rejected. That is the 7th time. So my employer is asking me to file an H1. He wanted to file an H1. So will this be a problem? I'm not getting F1 visa. I don't know what might be the reason. I'm a very good student, and they rejected me for 7 times without any reason. I did not question them. Why did you do that? But if I file H1 also, will they reject my profile, or I don't know what's happening beyond that. So I have very neat profile though.
From based on you're in India, right? Obviously, because you never obtained a visa, right?
Right.
I don't see the basis for your rejection for the F1 visa may be related to, it could be whether you're able to demonstrate certain criterion to meet the F1 student requirement. What education do you possess?
Sir, madam, I'm coming here to study computer science.
No, what education do you have right now? What have you completed in India?
Bachelor's. Engineering in computer science.
A 3-year or 4-year degree? 3 or 4 year
it's a 4 years degree. It's a 4 years degree.
All right. So I don't see any reason why your H1B would be a problem. You would meet the requirements if you possess a 4-year bachelor's degree. My advice to you is definitely go ahead and file for the H1 and be positive and just hope for the best, because the F1 rejection shouldn't have any basis on the H1B. They're not connected, really. They shouldn't be connected, because if you've completed your degree, there's no reason for any questioning on the fact on the H1 side. So I don't see any connection.
Yeah. Even I'm a very good student, and I graduated from Usmania University. It's one of the reputed universities in India too. So
right. You should be fine. I urge you to just go ahead and file for the H1B.
Sure. Thank you so much, ma'am. This was a question I was waiting for. Thanks so much.
All right. Good luck. Yes.
All right, everyone. Thanks for joining the call. If you have any more questions, please post on h1bsupport.com. And if you need attorney services, she can be reached. You can log into our website, emandilaw.com, EMANDILAW.com. We will have more sessions coming up in about a few weeks. If we have more information on the upcoming H1B visas, we'll definitely post it on our blog. So stay tuned in. Thank you, and have a good night. Thank you, Attorney Emandi, for your time.
Thank you, Dan. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. Good luck to everyone. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.